Hi everyone, little bit different video today. I get interviewed all the time by other podcasts, blogs, everything, radio, and you guys rarely get to see those interviews because those interviews get posted on their channels. I managed to get permission and I've managed to bring the interview which I did yesterday on the Championship podcast, which is hosted by Gabriel Sutton and Ollie Mann, to post the interview on my own channel. But I want you guys to show some love back to Gabriel Sutton and also Ollie Mann for allowing me to do this, because if they said no, you guys wouldn't have seen this interview unless you knew of Gabriel Sutton and Ollie Mann. They both started a podcast called the Championship Podcast, and they basically debate EFL content about the Championship. And on this particular episode, it was about teams that are underperforming regards to the table, and they got me on to speak about it. This interview was done on Monday evening before Luton signed Victor Moses, so some of the answers I do give are a little bit weird considering we've now signed an attacking player. But I want you guys to please check out Gabriel Sutton. He's a massive EFL expert. And then Ollie Mann, well, it's a Sheffield United fan, so I let you decide what you want to do with that. But both of their links and socials, YouTube channel about the Championship podcast is in the description below. Please check it out. It's Championship content. You want to improve on your Championship, knowledge, go and check out this Championship podcast. Honestly, it's brilliant. And yeah, enjoy the interview.
Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate. This is the Championship podcast, and we're talking about this evening teams that we think could be better than the table might suggest. Of course, the fans on this evening might disagree with us, so a really interesting debate, hopefully. Check it out. This is the Championship podcast. Yes, welcome along to EFL Debate. Get subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify, because that would help us out a lot. But for now, I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host Ollie Mann of Sheffield United Way. Good evening, Ollie. How are you?
Yes, I'm not bad, thanks, Gab. I've had a long period of leave off work. I've been off for like best part of 3 weeks, celebrating my birthday, and today was my first day back in the office. So I'm not as chipper as I sometimes can be, but I'm doing pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah,
how
it takes a while to get back into the swing of things, doesn't it? After
takes
a while,
ages. Honestly, I'll still be moaning about a month. I'll be like, oh, do you remember when I had them 3 weeks off? I'm still not back into it.
Then it'd be months after that.
I need months off, to be honest, just to recover from my leave. It's a never-ending cycle.
I'm delighted to be joined now by Lewis Williams of Luton Town. Lewis, thanks so much for joining us. Frustrating start to the season for Luton, but you've not been short of chances.
Yeah, that makes it even more frustrating because we are creating so many chances and we're just not taking them. But yeah, very, very frustrating start to the season. But I don't think many of us are surprised due to how unprepared we went into the season.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a couple of things at play. I mean, you've got a couple of strikers in Carlton Morris and in Elijah Adebayo that when they catch fire, they're going to start putting them in the onion bag. At the same time, I kind of look at... wait, are you laughing at that expression, Ollie?
I've never heard of that expression.
Oh, you've not heard of the expression, the onion bag? No. Maybe it's a bit... Okay. They're going to start putting them away. But I kind of look at that midfield, Lewis. I don't know what you think. I don't really necessarily see a natural conductor. I think I like Shandon Baptiste, I like Jordan Clark, I like both of them individually. So what do you think? Do you think it is conversion that's Luton Town's biggest problem at the moment?
Yeah, it's for me, the midfield's imbalance at the moment, because at the moment we're playing with two centre mids. I think after this international break, that's going to change. We're going to move into a three-man midfield with Nakamba coming in, and I also think our loan signing in Tom Krause will come in to the midfield as well, who's a little bit defensive minded, which then will give an opportunity for someone like Baptiste to have more of a freedom role in the midfield, to be a lot more creative. But saying that, the two goals which we have scored so far in the Championship, he's been massively involved in both of those goals. So it's just like an imbalance in the midfield with Clark and Baptiste in the midfield at the moment. We're trying to recreate Ross Barkley and Lokonga in the Premier League. Ross Barkley was amazing in the Premier League because he had the freedom role. He was very creative, but he was allowed to do that because he had Lokonga next to him who did the doggy work, the defensive side of things. Baptiste doesn't have that at the moment with Clark, because Clark's a little bit more creative as well. So it's just really imbalanced in the midfield. And I do think it is about just getting these chances away. We've created, I showed you a stat on social media this week, didn't I? And it was about Luton missing 10 big chances out of 11, I think. You improve that stat and massively, the results will change.
Yeah, it seems like it goes the other way as well. I know I was looking earlier, and I think you've conceded 7 from 3xG or something like that. It feels as though it's one of them periods where it's just not going in at one end, and at the other end, everything just seems to fly in. Obviously, one of the things for me coming down is when I was thinking about this season, because obviously you were relegated with us when we came down, and it felt as though we've completely torn up our squad and tried to rebuild it and start again. Burnley have come down, completely torn up their squad, sort of tried to rebuild it and start again. I actually had a lot of confidence for Luton coming into this season. I thought, there's consistency there. There's a consistent manager, consistent playing squad, consistent style. But it seems as though you've moved away from that a little bit. Were you expecting it to be a slow start? You said at the start you thought that you'd come in unprepared. And from the outside, I thought you came in as the most prepared of those teams that have come down.
Yeah, it was quite funny when I was listening to like everyone else talk about Luton. It was like, Luton are going to win the league, Luton are going to do this, Luton are going to do that. And I'm like, guys, you're not seeing what we're seeing. You know, we're seeing slow recruitment. We're seeing players potentially leaving. We're not seeing enough communication from owners down to the fans. And it was just worrying signs, really. We also had players that were injured, key players, especially in defence. That's why the first game against Burnley was a back line of 18-year-olds. It was just, that's why we all knew. And we was like, why are we not signing a centre-half here? Why are we not getting players in ready for that first game? And I feel like we've found it extremely difficult. Everyone knows about how Luton like to recruit. We recruit in a certain way. There's a structure in place. And I think the board have been, not stubborn, I don't feel like that's the right word, but I don't think the club want to feel like they're being bullied into paying out bigger fees for players that are simply just not worth it. Realistically, would McGuinness have been worth 10 million to another team? I don't know that, but yeah, we had to pay that sort of price to get a player in because at that point we were desperate. So I think we tried to do our old school ways that have worked so far, that's got us to the Premier League, but then since trying to replicate that now back in the Championship, we've just found it just a lot more difficult.
Talk to me about defensively, Lewis, because I think we've had maybe one or two disagreements over this, over whether it's a problem for Luton. And I think Ollie raised the really intelligent point that you've conceded something like 7 goals from 3xG. And I'm just looking at this defence, though, and I'm wondering if you're needing the next Tom Lockyer, if you like. Now, maybe Mark McGuinness, who you've brought in, can be that. But I've looked at the defence in isolated moments this season. And for me, the problem has seemed to be that there's been a sense of the whole defensive unit rushing over to deal with a minor problem. And then actually that compounding a major problem that becomes up that ends up being the thing that you concede from. And I'm just wondering whether you're needing somebody like Tom Lockyer, and maybe McGuinness can be that, as I say, to actually say, no, let's keep our shape and organisation. You go there, but we'll stay here, and we'll sort of keep it tight.
So a couple of things there. So the first thing I would raise is back to the imbalance in the midfield. Because you've got 2 creative players in front of the defence, that's another issue. Whereas last year, with this same system and formation we were playing, Lokonga was doing like recovery runs, so helping the defence out a lot. So we currently don't have that. Once Nakamba's back up to speed, and the same with Tom Krause as well, then I feel like the defence will get better. The second thing is we've not had a consistent backline in over a year. And I think that is so important. And I feel people overlook that. You get a consistent backline. You look at the year Luton won promotion to the Premier League. We kept like 20 clean sheets. Yeah. That's because we had a consistent backline. You've got to have consistency in that defence. But because we have too many players getting injured, too many players just dipping in and out of form, it's never been consistent. And then the last thing is, I think we also have to remember, and I think it is a bit unlucky as well. Every team's going to get an opportunity. It's very rare that no team will get a single shot away. But I feel like this season so far, especially against QPR, it felt like everything was just going to go in for them. That little bit of luck. And like I say to you, when you, like that missed chances thing, if you kill the game off early, you get
Mm.
1 or 2 goals and take full advantage of those attacking opportunities, then their goals don't happen because the
Yeah,
confidence is
true.
knocked. I completely understand about the isolated incidences, but for me, it would have been those incidences wouldn't have happened if we killed the game off.
True.
But because of the other stuff happening as well, like the inconsistent back line and also the imbalance in midfield, that's why I think the defence is also playing a massive like question mark. Until the others improve, then I can see things getting better. But if we're still having this conversation in 3 months' time, then I'd be like, yeah, I don't. Something needs to be looked at.
I half agree with you, Lewis, because I definitely think that there's a fantastic point there about the midfield balance. Because if I look at Edwards' Forest Green side, their two midfielders were very much about keeping the defensive discipline to facilitate such attacking wing backs. So I think that's a great point. Defensive consistency, great point. Missed chances, great point. They dictate the game. However, I also think that there's a responsibility on individual defenders to make sound decisions at key moments. And I think for one of the goals QPR scored, Ted Menji, someone was, I think it was that's it. It was Reece Burke, I think, was, or might have been Amari Bear. I think it was the left-sided centre half was dealing with Michael Frey, quite not great, but kind of was doing enough. And I think Ted and Menji basically rushed across, and the guy it wasn't Michael Frey who scored. I think it was a guy who kind of came up in another area, and
Yeah.
that's where I just think if we're holding Luton Town to the standards of a team that's aspiring to get into the Premier League or try and finish in the top two, you need your defenders to make good decisions. And if they score from a team having a brilliant shot from outside the box through a crowd of bodies, then you can kind of hold your hands up and accept that, of course, because you're not going to have a perfect defensive performance. But those isolated moments, you need the defenders to make the right decisions.
See, for me, that isolated moment. So, what started that? Because you're talking about the QPR first goal there.
Mm-hmm.
What started that off was McGuinness making a mistake. McGuinness lost the battle, which then meant because he lost the battle and it was a massive error. It was like a pass back when you accidentally do a pass. You essentially allowing a team to go through on goal. That's what he ended up doing, and players were out of position. They weren't expecting it, and that's how the goal ended up coming. So you can you can say, right, that's just simply unlucky. The second goal which QPR scored was from a player not tracking back, which was Chong, a left winger. That's the moment where we should be doing better. But then you also mentioned Amari Bell, him not doing good enough, so Menji ended up coming across. Amari Bell, we're playing as a left-sided centre half. Till this day, ever since we moved him into a left-sided centre half, I've always said he's not a left-sided centre half. Luton fans absolutely go mental at me and go, "How can you say that? He is not. He's a left back. He's a left back. We're just converting him to a left-sided centre half because we haven't signed a left-footed centre back." That's simply it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Lewis, I know that there's improvements that can come from Luton Town, like strikers converting their chances, those midfielders you mentioned coming into the team, Kraus and Nakamba. But what are I'm also mindful that you're 6 points off the playoffs already, 9 points off the automatic promotion spots, and I suppose I'm thinking you can't, as much as you can make some allowances for the struggles in form and think of reasons why that might be the case. You can't afford to give up too much more ground, can you?
No, well, if we haven't improved in the next 5 games, the fans are going to be asking questions to Rob Edwards. To be fair, so yeah, it can't last any longer. He's got this international break. I've kind of looked at it as well. I've kind of looked at the Millwall game, going right. Our season starts now. There's no excuses now. You now know what your squad is. Transfer deadline day's over. You now know what you're playing with. You now know what system you should be playing. No, none of this like, oh, we may have to switch to this system because we've only got this players. No, you now know the system. Players have returned back from injury. I think we've only got 1 or 2 So the main squad's there. The defence is all there now. There shouldn't be any defensive problems. Now it's like, right, carry on what we were doing in terms of the way we were playing, because we were creating chances. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
If you're not creating anything, that's when you start worrying.
100%.
But then, yeah, and it's about, right, we need to start clicking. None of this Morris playing as a winger, because he isn't a winger. Him being centre in between the goalposts with Elijah Adebayo. Because Elijah's getting the chances. So if Morris has to literally stand behind him, he's also going to get one or two himself if he just stays within him. So, we all got to remember, both of those strikers have scored 20 goals at this level. So it's not like they can't do it. They're capable of doing it. They just need to get that goal. And just like any other striker, once you do score that first, it kind of kickstarts your season, doesn't it? So fingers crossed that happens against Millwall, and that £34 which I've just spent on the away ticket is fully worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Lewis, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining us, and good luck to the Hatters for the rest of the season.
Cheers. Thank you for having me on, guys.